The Silent Awakening. For 3 centuries, humanity lived in the shadow of galactic giants. The Concordat, an alliance of 7 advanced species, controlled the diplomatic channels, trade routes, and military corridors that connected the 1,000 inhabited worlds. Humans were tolerated, but never respected. The emotional apes, they called us behind closed doors, technically advanced enough to join the stars, but lacking the evolutionary maturity to be taken seriously. Earth maintained a modest collection of 27 colonies, mostly mining outposts and agricultural worlds that supplied the greater galactic economy with raw materials. We were forbidden from manufacturing certain technologies, restricted in our expansion, and required to submit to routine stability inspections from Concordat peacekeeping forces. The galaxy had convinced itself that humans were dangerous not because of our weapons, but our unpredictability, our emotions, our stubborn defiance, our willingness to sacrifice for abstract concepts like freedom. They weren't entirely wrong. The Keplerian massacre changed everything. A peaceful human scientific outpost on Kepler 186f, studying atmospheric terraforming techniques, was labeled a biological weapons facility by Concordat intelligence. Without warning or investigation, a Tarjan battle group reduced the station to atoms, killing all 4,276 researchers, support staff, and their families. On Earth, the response was unexpected. No outrage, no threats, no diplomatic protests, just silence. 3 days later, every communication device across human space simultaneously displayed the same message. Earth Command Protocol, Stormbreaker, initiated. All vessels return to Sol system. Emergency recall authorization. Juggernaut. Throughout human space, ships abandoned their routes, colonies began evacuating non-essential personnel, and military units disappeared into the black without explanation. The Concordat observed these movements with mild curiosity but little concern. After all, what could the humans possibly do against the combined might of 7 spacefaring civilizations who had been traversing the stars before humans invented the wheel? Admiral Marcus Thorne stood before a massive vault door deep beneath the Olympus Mons military complex on Mars, his handprint glowing blue against the scanner. The door, untouched for generations, recognized his genetic lineage. His great-grandmother had been one of the architects of the Stormbreaker Protocol, a contingency so extreme it had been hidden from public knowledge for 3 centuries. Genetic verification confirmed, announced an emotionless voice. "Welcome, Admiral Thorne. The War Council awaits." The ancient chamber awakened as he entered, illuminating 13 seats arranged in a perfect circle. Only 5 were occupied by the highest-ranking commanders from Earth's divided military branches, their faces grim. At the center of the circle, a holographic projection showed the galaxy in miniature, with human territories marked in blue, tiny islands in a vast ocean of alien control. "Our ancestors prepared for this day," said General Santiago, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic light. They knew that one day the Concordat would go too far. "The ghost fleets are ready," Admiral Thorne reported. "Our ancestors built them and hid them in the shadows of gas giants, the hearts of nebulae, and the dark spaces between stars. Ships with technologies the Concordat believes impossible." "And the Titans?" asked Fleet Commander Ishiguro. "The first 3 have already awakened," Thorne replied. "The rest will follow." Far beyond Neptune's orbit, massive shipyards hidden within hollowed-out asteroids stirred to life. Vessels unlike any the galaxy had seen emerged from century-long slumber, not warships in the conventional sense, but hunters, predators designed with a singular purpose. The War Council issued its first and only public statement, a transmission broadcast across all frequencies in all languages, seen on every screen across 1,000 worlds. A single human officer appeared, her expression not angry but resolute. "This is Earth's final command. From this moment forward, the stars are no longer safe." Then silence. Throughout the Concordat, the message was met with dismissive laughter. The Tarjan High Command called it typical human emotional posturing. The Valexian Senate dismissed it as primitive intimidation tactics. Only Admiral Zexker of the Cephalid Union, who had faced humans during the Battle of Ta Sidi a century before, felt a cold dread wash over him. "They do not make hollow threats," he warned the Concordat Security Council. "I've seen what happens when humans feel cornered." His warnings went unheeded. 7 days after the message, the Concordat naval base at Sirius fell silent. When investigation ships arrived, they found the station intact but completely devoid of power. All 15,000 personnel were alive but deeply traumatized, each claiming to have experienced the same psychological attack, the sensation of being hunted by something they couldn't see or understand. The base's quantum computers had been precisely targeted, their cores extracted without triggering alarms. No human ships had been detected entering or leaving the system. 3 days later, the Valexian flagship Eternal Dominion disappeared while patrolling the Perseus Arm. Its escort vessels reported watching the massive dreadnought simply vanish between one moment and the next, leaving behind only a strange distortion in spacetime that defied analysis. The pattern continued. Critical military installations found their defensive systems mysteriously offline. Supply depots reported their most advanced weapons missing with no evidence of forced entry. Encrypted communication networks suddenly broadcast their secured channels openly across public frequencies. None of these attacks bore traditional human signatures. There were no missile strikes, no fighter squadrons, no infantry assaults. Just precision infractions that left the Concordat military increasingly paranoid and disoriented. "This isn't war," Admiral Zexker told the emergency session of the Concordat Security Council. "This is surgery. They're dismantling our capabilities piece by piece without firing a shot." Reports began filtering through Concordat intelligence of ships unlike any they'd encountered before. Vessels that absorbed rather than reflected sensor scans. Hulls that seemed to phase partially out of normal spacetime. Propulsion systems that left no energy signatures. The Ghost Fleet, as it came to be called, struck without warning and disappeared just as quickly. One moment, a Concordat battlecruiser would detect a strange anomaly, and the next, they would find critical systems inoperable, weapons disabled, and navigation compromised. On the colony world of New Carthage, civilians reported seeing human soldiers appear and disappear at will, moving through solid matter as if it were air. Surveillance footage showed troops in obsidian armor that seemed to absorb light itself, their movements unnaturally fluid and precise. "This isn't possible," insisted Tarjan High Commander Vex Shell. "The humans don't have this technology. Our intelligence would have detected it." "What if they always had it?" countered Admiral Zexker. "What if everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was exactly what they wanted us to believe?" Fear spread through the Concordat faster than any human fleet could have. Species that had considered themselves masters of the galaxy began to question their fundamental understanding of their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The first major confrontation came at the Arcturus Gateway, a critical junction controlling access to 37 star systems. A Concordat defense fleet of 200 vessels had assembled, determined to make a stand against the phantom menace that had been terrorizing their territories. For 3 days they waited. Sensors swept the surrounding space constantly. Fighter patrols maintained continuous coverage of all approach vectors. On the 4th day, they detected it, a massive object emerging from the darkness between stars. Not one ship, but something far larger. A Titan-class vessel nearly 20 kilometers in length, its hull composed of layered geometric shapes that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt the eyes to observe. "Concordat Defense Fleet," came the transmission, the voice calm and emotionless. "This is the Earth vessel Nemesis. You have occupied territory that is now under Earth protection. Withdraw immediately." The Concordat admiral responded with a barrage of antimatter torpedoes, each capable of shattering the small moon. None reached their target. The space around the Nemesis appeared to bend. the torpedoes suddenly finding themselves traveling through corridors of warped spacetime that redirected them back toward the Concordat fleet. 37 ships were destroyed by their own weapons before the human vessel fired a single shot. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration. The Nemesis released thousands of small objects, each no larger than a human fist. These scattered throughout the Concordat formation, passing through shields as if they weren't there. Once in position, they activated. Space itself seemed to fracture around each Concordat vessel, localized fields of distorted physics causing systems to fail, materials to lose cohesion, and crews to experience temporal distortion, some aging years in seconds, others frozen in moments of time. In 17 minutes, the largest Concordat fleet ever assembled ceased to exist as a fighting force. No ship was destroyed. None of the 2 million personnel were killed. But every vessel was rendered inoperable, their crews incapacitated not by violence, but by the fundamental manipulation of the physical laws they had taken for granted. The message from the Nemesis was broadcast across the entire galaxy. We did not want this. We asked only to exist in peace. Remember that what follows is of your making, not ours. Throughout Concordat space, populations that had never known fear now huddled in their homes, watching the skies, not knowing where or when the humans would strike next, not understanding how a species they had dismissed for centuries had suddenly revealed such overwhelming technological superiority. What they didn't know was that the true demonstration of power had not yet begun. The reckoning storm. The 7 ruling species of the Concordat gathered in emergency session on their capital world, Harmonia Prime. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, the meeting was not broadcast across the galaxy. What transpired there was deemed too sensitive, too potentially demoralizing for the general population. We must unite all our forces, urged High Commander Vex Shal of the Tarjan hegemony. Commit everything we have to a single, overwhelming strike against the Sol system. And what if we fail? Asked Elder Kavoth of the Valexian Senate. We would have nothing left to defend our homeworlds. As the debate raged, a junior communications officer burst into the chamber, a breach of protocol so severe that the guards nearly executed him on the spot. "Forgive me, exalted ones," he gasped, "but human vessels have been detected in orbit around all 7 of your homeworlds." They appeared simultaneously, out of nowhere. The revelation struck like a physical blow. If humans could position capital ships around the most heavily defended planets in the galaxy without detection, what couldn't they do? The Concordat leadership unanimously agreed to the formation of the United Defense Initiative, pooling the resources and military strength of all member species into a single fighting force. Their plan was desperate but straightforward. Assemble the largest armada in galactic history and launch a decisive strike against Earth. As preparations for this massive assault began, a different scene unfolded on the human colony world of Proxima Centauri B. Commander Ilara Hayes stood atop a cliff overlooking the settlement of New Seattle, watching civilian transports evacuate the last residents. Unlike most Earth military officers, Hayes had spent years as a diplomatic liaison to the Concordat. She understood their languages, their cultures, their ways of thinking, and their fundamental misunderstanding of humanity. Her comm unit chimed. "Commander, the War Council requests your presence." Immediately. Hours later, Hayes found herself in the ancient chamber beneath Olympus Mons, facing the 13 seats, now all occupied. Admiral Thorne nodded to her as she entered. "Commander Hayes, your expertise on Concordat psychology is needed. They're marshaling their forces for a direct assault on Sol. Our intelligence suggests over 20,000 vessels." "They're terrified," Hayes replied. "When scared animals are cornered, they attack. The demonstrations so far have only convinced them that they must strike now before we grow even stronger." "Then they've learned nothing," said a wizened woman Hayes didn't recognize, her uniform bearing insignia from what appeared to be an ancient, forgotten military branch. "Chancellor Reyes," Admiral Thorne explained, "oversees the Titan Initiative. "The time has come," Rides announced, "for the final demonstration. Nexus Junction." A chill ran through Hayes. Nexus Junction was the heart of the Concordat's interstellar infrastructure, a massive artificial construct where the hyperlanes of 70 major trade routes converge. Millions of vessels passed through it daily. Nearly 15% of the galactic population depended on it for food and essential supplies. "We can't possibly attack a civilian target of that magnitude," Hayes protested. "Who said anything about attacking?" Chancellor Rice smiled thinly. "We're going to save it." Light years away, the Concordat Armada began its final assembly near the system of Beta Hydrae. Ship after ship arrived through hyperspace, forming battle groups larger than most planetary defense forces. At its center loomed the newly completed Concordat Supremacy, a vessel 3 times the size of any previous dreadnought, armed with weapons designed specifically to counter the phantom technologies demonstrated by human forces. High Admiral Jakar of the Mentalid Collective took command of the United Fleet, his psychic abilities allowing him to coordinate the massive armada with unprecedented efficiency. The attack plan was set. The fleet was 1 day from launch when the disaster at Nexus Junction occurred. Not an attack, but a natural catastrophe. A rogue neutron star, previously undetected, emerged from a rare spatial anomaly on a direct collision course with the junction. The Concordat Science Division calculated impact in less than 10 hours, insufficient time to evacuate even a fraction of the 14 million beings aboard the station. The United Fleet received desperate pleas for assistance, but they were too far away. Nothing in known space could reach Nexus Junction in time. The Concordat leadership faced an impossible choice: abandon their strategic position and save who they could, or maintain their offensive posture against Earth while millions died. Before they could decide, sensors detected massive energy signatures emerging near Nexus Junction. Human signatures. 7 Titan-class vessels materialized in perfect formation around the station. Unlike the Nemesis, these ships weren't weapons platforms. They were something far more remarkable. In a synchronized maneuver, the Titans positioned themselves between the oncoming neutron star and the junction. Energy fields of incalculable power extended from each vessel, merging to form a geometric pattern that enveloped the entire station. As the neutron star approached, space itself seemed to fold around it. The star didn't impact or divert. It simply relocated. One moment it was bearing down on Nexus Junction. The next it appeared 2 light years away, safely clear of any inhabited systems. The entire galaxy watched through the Junction's broadcast system as humanity casually demonstrated control over fundamental cosmic forces in a way that defied comprehension. The 7 Titans remained in position for exactly 1 hour, then vanished just as mysteriously as they had appeared. They left behind a single message, transmitted directly into the Junction's main computer. "We could have let you die. Remember that when you consider your next move." On Harmonia Prime, the Concordat leadership sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in. The humans had not only saved millions of lives, but had done so using technology so advanced it appeared to violate the known laws of physics. "They moved a neutron star," whispered Elder Kivoth, "like it was nothing more than a piece on a game board." "The attack cannot proceed," declared High Admiral Jakar, his psychic voice resonating in the minds of all present. "I've scanned the thoughts of those who witnessed the event at Nexus Junction. The humans weren't straining their capabilities. They were holding back. So we surrender," snarled Commander Vex Shell. "Bow to these apes." "We open dialogue," countered Admiral Zexkar. "Before it's too late." The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for what happened next. Throughout the chamber, communication devices activated simultaneously. On every screen appeared a human face. Commander Ilara Hayes. "Esteemed leaders of the Concordat," she began, speaking perfect High Tarjan. "I am authorized to inform you that in exactly 1 hour, representatives of Earth's War Council will arrive in your chamber to discuss terms." "How did you breach our security?" demanded Vex Ishal. Hayes smiled slightly. We never breached anything. We've been here all along." The revelation sent shockwaves through the gathered leaders. If humans could project communications directly into their most secure facility, what other systems had been compromised? What other secrets had been exposed? 1 hour later, exactly as promised, 3 humans materialized in the center of the chamber. Not through any visible technology, not through doors or transporters, but simply appearing as if stepping through an invisible curtain. Admiral Marcus Thorne, Chancellor Amara Reyes, and Commander Ilara Hayes stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, unarmed and unafraid. "We could have come with fleets," Thorne began without preamble. "We could have demonstrated our power through destruction rather than preservation. The fact that we chose otherwise should tell you everything you need to know about our intentions." "What do you want?" asked Elder Kevoth, his voice barely a whisper. "The same thing we have always wanted," replied Hayes. "To exist without interference, to develop without constraint, to be treated as equals, not subordinates." Chancellor Reyes stepped forward, her ancient eyes holding centuries of human determination. 300 years ago, when your ancestors first contacted Earth, they found a species divided, primitive by your standards, but with potential. Rather than guiding that potential, you feared it, you restricted it, you regulated it. "What you didn't realize," continued Thorne, "is that the technology we showed you, the capabilities we demonstrated, were only what we chose to reveal. Our ancestors made a decision," Hayes explained. "They would play the role you expected, the emotional, impulsive, technologically limited species. Meanwhile, our true development continued in secret. The Titans, the Ghost Fleet, the technologies you've witnessed, these are not recent creations. They have existed for centuries, waiting for the day they would be needed." "Why reveal yourselves now?" asked Admiral Zexcare. "Why not continue the deception?" "Because the Keplerian massacre crossed a line," Thorne answered, his voice hardening. "Innocents died because of your arrogance, because you believed us incapable of response." "We do not want war," Rice said. "We never have. But neither will we tolerate the treatment we have endured for generations." From her pocket, Hayes produced a small device which projected a document into the air, a new treaty, one that would reshape the power structure of the galaxy itself. "These are our terms," she said. "Equal representation, recognition of human sovereignty, unrestricted development rights, and accountability for those responsible for Kepler. And if we refuse," challenged Vex Ishal. In answer, the chamber around them seemed to shift subtly. Through the windows, they could see not the familiar skyline of Harmonia Prime, but Earth, the cradle of humanity, surrounded by defensive systems that made the Concordet's mightiest weapons look like children's toys. "We've just transported this entire building to Sol orbit," explained Thorne calmly. "We can return it just as easily. Whether you return with it is your choice." 3 days later, the Treaty of New Harmonia was signed. The Concordat became the Galactic Union, with humanity accepted as full and equal partners. Those responsible for the Keplerian massacre were brought to justice. The restricted technologies that had kept human development artificially constrained were abandoned. And the War Council returned to its chamber beneath Olympus Mons, the Titans once again hidden in the dark places between stars, the Ghost Fleet fading back into legend. Not dismantled or destroyed, but waiting, a silent promise that while humanity desired peace, they would never again be unprepared for war. Throughout the galaxy, beings of 1,000 species looked to the night sky with new understanding. The stars were safe again, but only because humanity had chosen mercy over vengeance, preservation over destruction. Earth's final command had been delivered. The galaxy had listened, and the universe would never be the same.